Give us free. Give us free. Give us free.
Your Honor, please instruct the defendant that he cannot disrupt these proceedings with such outbursts.
Give us free. Give us free.
If we are to have any semblance of order in this country,
Give us free.
Peace, unity, and welcome my conscious and unconscious family and friends. This is the all-new Black Village Community Podcast, and I am truly your host of the show, JC, aka Afro Black, dropping nothing but the raw and uncut, without any fear, as I use my mic as a spear to chucker you with liberated truth. I am your host and your native soldier in the struggle. My purpose and mission for this show is first to enlighten, inform, and engage. And I want to engage with all who claim to know the truth. All truth seekers and my native family, I welcome you. This show is dedicated to all our indigenous native ancestors and to all those who've carried the mantle of truth, and to every person with the ability to throw off the chains of comfortable habit and unwarranted assumption and move in a new, liberated direction that is guided by truth and observational evidence, no matter where that direction may lead you. My main objective and purpose here is freedom, mind, soul, and spirit. That being said, welcome to the Black Village Community Podcast, and much love from our great universal goddess and mother of all, living here and above.
AC in the house.
I'll answer the question. You want answers?
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth. Truth.
Aboriginal people, Aboriginal people, Aboriginal people, Aboriginal people, Aboriginal people, Aboriginal people, Aboriginal people.
Aboriginal means the original inhabitant of a land from the earliest times. The ancient mound builders have built and designed the pyramids right here, not just by the Nile, contrary to popular belief and denial. Pyramids and huge hieroglyphics and pictographs on the ground are all mounds found around the Americas, north, central, and south, even Venus and Mars. That is documented fact that emanates from my mouth. So who exactly were these Aboriginals here, whose ancient evidence of residency is hesitantly mentioned in this hemisphere? Were they the stereotypical Native American so-called Red Indians? Well then, let's be clear, ask any of their tribes if they're sincere. They'll tell ya those mounds predate their origins. Our past was erased and replaced with lies. Our achievements and identity plagiarized. We got amnesia of who we are, but we go way back further than the seats in your car.
Aboriginal people, 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 Aboriginal people.
This is how we ride and roll. Soldier for life for sure.
Hey, this is JC, aka Afro Black, and I am here with ya for another indigenous Sunday. This is JC, aka Afro Black, and I am here with you for another indigenous, delicious Sunday to share nothing but, to drop nothing but the raw and uncut. That's what I do here on the Black Village. And if you joined in, if you tuned in, hey, I am happy you're here with me to verberate, to communicate, and to maybe just, to maybe share in with a brother here on this indigenous topic that I'm going to be sharing with you, which is a continuation from last week and the week before last. You feel me? And so let me change my theme music up and give us something more realistic and something more live to verberate to. Let me give me something like this here. Oh, there we go. Here we go. Tupac in the backdrop. You feel me? There we go, right there. There we go. That's cool. So this is JC, aka Afro Black, and I'm here with you and this wonderful, here in Killer Cali, rainy day, indigenous, beautiful day. So I'm here to verberate and communicate with my indigenous, aboriginal, and those who are not indigenous and aboriginal community on conscious cultural truth. That's what I do here. That's what I love to do, and that's what I will always do, my people. And so I am here today. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to continue this podcast subject, which is titled, and I quote, "Why Bill Cosby's Rise and Fall Hurt Black America," Part 3. Subtitled, "You Can't Handle the Truth." Again, why Bill Cosby's Rise and Fall Hurt Black America, Part 3. You can't handle the truth. Now, if somebody out there wondering, why are you still talking about this subject matter? Why are you still talking about Bill Cosby? I believe, in my conscious opinion, it is a very important subject matter to verberate on, to communicate on, for the simple fact, we as a so-called people, we as a so-called, as they like to call us, so-called Black American people. I don't like using that term African, because I'm not African, and the majority of so-called Black America have nothing to do genetically, politically, socially, consciously, traditionally, customarily, have nothing to do with that continent across the Pacific Ocean called Africa. We have no family members there. We have nothing to do with those people. Them people got their own issues, their own problems, their own joys, their own pains they're dealing with. And so over here in North America, we over here who are labeled and who are falsely identified as Black Americans, a.k.a. also trying to, legalize this artificial construct of African American, we are American Indians. And so on that note, the reason why this is important to the subject matter of our cultural awareness and our cultural, customary, original identity is due to the fact that I believe that we as a people need to be aware. We need to be consciously aware. We need to be warlike aware. We need to be cautiously aware, consciously aware, and culturally aware of what people like Bill Cosby represent and what their agenda and motive is. Now, somebody may say, well, that was his job. He was a comedian. He was an actor. He was doing his job and opened the doors for other people. But you can open the doors for other people. You can do your job and still care about who you are culturally, ethnically. You can still honor your ancestors. Other cultures, other people do it all day long. Chinese, Japanese, Asian, Italians, Jews, and Jews are not even, that's another course, another podcast for another thing. But since they want to make Jewishness, which is an indoctrinated, plagiarized religion, and they want to make it an ethnic race, my point is these people don't give up their identities. They don't give up their ancestral honoring of their ancestors or their ethnicities. They don't trade it the end. They don't let it go. They don't drop it. They don't let go who they are for money. But over here in America, house Negroes do that all day long. They'll sacrifice their mama, their sister, their brother. They'll sacrifice their identity. They'll sell their soul for artificial capital. And so this is what I want to expose today, and this is what I want to talk today. I want to continue my podcast topic on dropping nothing but the raw and uncut on Bill Cosby, because you got so many people trying to somebody interrupted my podcast. I'm not going to let this happen. I'm doing a show. Don't be calling in while I'm doing a podcast. Come into my chat room right here. Join me. Anybody want to chime in? You want to join me here on the Black Village? You can chime in. It doesn't cost you a dime, just a bit of your conscious time. You can chime in at 857-232-0155. Again, that is 857-232-0155. Conference code to get through the conference door to sit with me here live on the Black Village at the table of truth. 947595. Again, that is 947595. So, back to my subject matter and point, okay? We have to be a people of truth, people. This is what I want to reverberate. This is what I want to communicate. This is what I want to relate. We have to be a people of truth. Bill Cosby did not represent a people of truth. Bill Cosby represented the artificial construct of what the white man want us to be as what they call, what they're comfortable with, what they consider an American or African American, Black American family. This is what Bill Cosby represented. You got a whole lot of house Negroes out there that love that idea, love that dream, love that vision of what the white man created. It looks good to them. It looks comfortable to them. It looks peaceful to them. And they can sit right next door to their white devils and perpetrate a front. And not perpetrate a front, embrace that front. Identify with that front. You feel me? If we're going to be an American Aboriginal people of truth, we have to expose house Negroes. We have to embrace the reality of who we are. We cannot hide who we are. We cannot let another people tell us who we are. We cannot forget who we are. Because this is exactly what not only what the opposition wants, but this is what our ancestors don't want us to do, to forget who they are. And over the years and over the generations, we've allowed the system to cause us, starting with our grandparents, starting with our great-grandparents, starting with our parents, starting in the 90s and in the 80s and in the 70s and in the 60s. I mean, Martin Luther King, even though he gave us messages and tried to speak around the rhetoric that he was given to give us some truth, to give us a seed of truth in everything he was saying, he still compromised his identity. He still compromised his ethnicity. Malcolm X did it. Marcus Garvey did it. We as American Aborigines cannot allow ourselves to fall into the pit of amnesia, of confusion, and of artificial construct labels and identities. So, people, as I said, we got to be a people of peace. This is what I want to talk about today. I'm going to continue this subject matter, okay, on Bill Cosby. And especially to all my American Aboriginal family and friends and soldiers and fellow researchers of truth out there. Me, Brother Afro Black, your storm of cultural consciousness and awareness, doing as I always do, every indigenous or every other, because I know I want everybody. Matter of fact, I want everybody to know, anybody who listens to my show, I'm not going to be doing a Sunday show every Sunday as I normally do. I'm going to do a show every other Sunday. So I put that out on my Facebook events page. I put it on my Google events page that I'm not going to be doing a show every Sunday anymore. Now, from now on, it's going to be every other Sunday. This will give me time for preparation, time for research, time for studying, time for meditation, and also give me time to spend with my family. So I'm changing my scheduling. My new scheduling program will be every other Sunday, not every Sunday. So every other Sunday, I'll be doing a live podcast. On that note, okay, I plan this today. What I plan on doing with this session, because this is the third week and a continuation with this podcast topic, why Bill Cosby's rise and fall hurt Black America, part 3. Okay, but today what I want to do, because what I've been doing with this podcast subject is exposing that Bill Cosby represented the Black elite. Now, you got some people out there say, what's wrong with the Black elite? The Black elite are nothing but house Negroes. the black elite got the same agenda. They have the same mission and agenda as white people: control, capitalism, and control, capitalism, and basically for their own selfish means. We cannot emulate that. We cannot emulate the elite. The elite don't care about culture. The elite sold out their soul for capitalism, for a seat at the white man's table hundreds of years ago when the colonizers came here. It was those house Negro Indians that was trading their people, like Pocahontas. Yes, Rana could say she traded her people. In my conscious opinion, based on the story, and if the story has any truth to it, she traded her people. And so you got some people, everybody got their different twist on Pocahontas. I've heard 3 different stories on what she did, and out of those 3 stories, one made it look like she traded her people. The other 2 stories made it look like, one story made it look like she compromised, not necessarily traded. The other story made it look like she was doing what she was doing to save her people. So we got to be a people of truth. If we can't sell out our identity, sell out our culture for comfortability, for capitalism. We all have to survive. Number one, what we got to do is come together as a people. But before we can come together as a people, we have to come together as a culture. We have to embrace our ancestral cultural past, ancestral cultural identity, ancestral cultural customs. Doesn't mean, I'm not saying that we got to go live in teepees. You don't see Chinese people living like they did thousands of years ago, but yet the Chinese love, cherish, and honor their culture. You don't see Japanese people running around in samurai uniforms chopping people's heads off, but yet the Japanese care, honor, and cherish their culture. Africans have adapted, and a lot of them have abandoned their culture, but you know what? Many of them hold to their culture and still continue on with productivity, education, and technology. And that's what I'm saying, people. We have to be a people of culture to be a respected people and to be a unified people. So on that note, what I plan on doing this third session on the podcast topic of why Bill Cosby's rise and fall hurt Black America, what I plan on doing is proving 3 main points that proves why Bill Cosby couldn't relate or connect to the common folk, so to speak, meaning Bill didn't and couldn't connect in any way other than his own melanated skin to the average so-called Black American. Did you get that, folks? I plan on proving 3 main points. What I want to prove is that Bill Cosby couldn't relate nor connect to the common folk, so to speak, meaning he didn't connect in any way to Black people other than his melanated skin. Other than that, he could not even connect or relate to the average so-called Black man or Black woman in America. My first case in point, Bill's fraudulent background. You heard me. My first case in point that Bill couldn't connect to Black people, didn't give a fuck about Black people, couldn't relate to Black people. When I say Black people, the average. I ain't talking about, he connected and related to them elite motherfuckers sitting next to white folks, the ones who be sitting next to Trump eating Trump steaks. He could relate to them. My first case in point is Bill's fraudulent background. Yes, this itself explains the fact that why Bill couldn't and didn't relate and didn't connect to the so-called Black community, because he never came from a poor so-called Black home environment or our community as claimed in his bio. And I'm going to prove that. So that's number 1. Okay. Nor was Bill born and raised. We know where Bill was born and raised, but Bill was not born and raised at all in a poor Black community, not even a middle class Black community, because there was no middle class Black community in the 40s and the 50s. There was only upper white middle class communities. There were no upper middle class Black communities in the 50s and in the 40s. You feel me? So again, okay, but the reason why he couldn't relate to Black folks, if you look at where he came from, okay, Bill was born and raised in all white Germantown, Philly, in the 40s and in the 50s. It was at the time it was a middle upper class community. The second case in point, okay, my second case in point, which proves another interesting point about Bill, that it proves that he was born and raised with an elitist background. Okay, the fact that he was born in the upper class, all white community in Germantown itself is proof in itself that Bill Cosby lied about his history. Because I did research in Germantown, and I'm going to go over some of that information again. So again, he was born with an elitist background, okay? And that's another interesting point about Bill Cosby that proves that he was born with the fact that he was born in Germantown, Philadelphia. And I call that fraudulent because if you go research Germantown, Philadelphia, in the 50s, in the 40s, in the 30s, it was an all white community at that time. So my point, if Bill Cosby was living in that community, what black folks has upper class money in the 40s and in the 50s? I mean, unless you was a Harry Belafonte or something like that. Again, how many black folks you think lived in that community in Germantown during that time? Bill was born, I believe, in 1932. He's 80 years old today. So his childhood was in the 30s and in the 40s. His teenagehood was in the 50s. Okay, he was in college in the 1960s, in the early 60s. So there you go. Bill was born in an elitist family. He couldn't have been born in a poor community, in a poor family. So that right there is proof and point that Bill lied about his fraudulent background, about being raised in a poor community in Germantown. Germantown didn't become predominantly a black community until the 70s. Okay? So, with him representing and exemplifying a public figure in the mid 1960s and the 70s, which proves he was a conformist. That's my second point. My second point is that Bill was a conformist. Okay? And a pacifist who was an agent for the black hidden elite and a house Negro for white corporate establishment, which is the financial base for Hollywood entertainment. This is the reason why Bill was one of the highest paid people in entertainment, making over $400 million a year. Okay? The last thing I want to focus on when I end talking about Bill Cosby in these podcasts, my last and final thing point I want to make, I will prove the two factors about House Negro Bill is that he hated so-called poor, black, uneducated people. And that fact, and that's a fact that he was an out of, and that last fact that I want to point out when I end my podcast, not this one, but probably a third or a fourth, is that he was, in fact, the rapist whose past eventually caught up with him, and and it ended up as a jailhouse nightmare, which is where he's at right now. So on that point, my last couple podcasts, as I pointed out as well, through an interview with Cornel West, where he talks about the failure of the elite. He talks about the failure. This is the reason why a lot of us, we aspire to have money in our pocket. We aspire to be entrepreneurs. We aspire our kids to go get an education like my sons have done, to go get their education. But we don't want our kids getting caught up in this white-minded mentality of not caring about who they are, not caring about their culture, not caring about their history, not caring about their family, not caring about their ancestral traditions, principles, and standards. And this is what we've abandoned. By abandoning those virtues, we've made ourselves a cultureless people. And so let me reiterate a little bit of Cornel West. And then I will continue my podcast as I continue to go in and make a point. I got some audio casts I want to play right here. The audio casts I want to play not only just reiterate what Cornel West stated. I got an audio cast that I want to play that shows Bill Cosby in 1968 being a conformist and a pacifist. While he talks about black history, you can see that he's nothing but a pacifist as he spread nothing but the same brainwashed agenda that white people constantly brainwash us with, which is the fact that, that most black people are criminals, most black people have a dark history and a dark past, and that we came from slave. I'm gonna let you hear that, but before I let you hear those audio casts by Bill Cosby, let's reiterate again. Let's reiterate again. Cornel West. So, wait a minute now. Let me reiterate Cornel West, and we shall return right after this.
It was dismantled, one, by trying to instill a fear within black people, within poor people, within working people, so that we no longer would want to straighten our backs up and engage in collective fight back. What took the place of collective fight back was individual upward mobility. So that what was once in place, much more stronger moral conviction, we saw ruthless ambition.
And there you go right there. That's an example. What are you talking about? Ruthless ambition. What is that ruthless ambition? Ruthless ambition is at any means necessary making that money. Chasing that green dollar. Chasing that green cotton. At one time, and it wasn't all over this country, that's another mindset and manipulation these white devils do, that slavery was all over this country. Wherever white folks had colonized, there was slavery. That's a lie. That's a lie. That's not true. Many of our people was free people. They weren't slaves. And not only that, none of our people started out as slaves. Prisoners of war people. It was an agreement our people had to help them cultivate their farms and cultivate their crop. And then they kept our people on these plantations, made laws to keep them on these plantations to justify enslavement. These motherfuckers are still not telling the truth of the history of how slavery came about in this country. But going back to the point of what Cornel West is saying again, let me play that again.
It was dismantled, one, by trying to instill a fear within black people, within poor people, within working people, so that we no longer would want to straighten our backs up and engage in collective fight back.
Look what he said, collective fight back. So we wouldn't want to engage anymore in what is that? That's when coming together as a people, like they did during the Civil Rights Movement, like they did during Martin Luther King, Malcolm X period, when black folks was trying to fight for what they called or what they considered human rights, and they made it a civil right. Basically, we've lost that collective coming together by them creating what is called a divide and conquer amongst us. They did it with politics. They did it with religion. They did it with education, creating a divide and conquer amongst us. And you know what? It's easy to divide and conquer. It's easy to put something before somebody's eyes like a treat. Here, come and get it, when they ain't got nothing and when they don't know who they are. When you take away their culture, which is their identity and their connection to who they are, their people, and where they come from. That's exactly what these white devils have done, people. By taking away our culture, by instilling in our people a fear, not only a fear that caused them not to come together, that destroyed that collective comeback, as Cornel West said, but also a fear of not wanting to stand for who they are. To take which caused them not to share with their children, because they feared for their kids. If their kids went out telling kids that they were Indian, if their kids went out telling their neighbors that they were American Indian, if their kids went to school and told their teacher that they were American Indian, come on now, back in the 1950s, back in the 1930s, huh? Their parents' lives would be in jeopardy with a burnt cross in their front yard. Their father would lose their job. Their mother, if she was working as a maid, she would lose her job, and they would be harassed by white folks. They instilled a fear in our people not to embrace their cultural identity, people, not just no collective fight back. See, Cornel West is talking from a political perspective, our political perspective in the essence of fighting for your rights, your dignity, for education, for your constitutional rights. That's what he's talking about, that collective fight back. I'm talking about the collective fight back when it comes to our cultural identity, though. This is where Cornel West falls short at. This is where Cornel West fellow colleagues who are so-called black Americans, this is where they fall short at. And I know he knows what he's talking about when it comes to these elite, because Cornel West has rubbed shoulders, have talked to and been brought into the homes of these very elite motherfuckers. But what Cornel West won't tell so-called black people, what he won't say, and what he has not written a book on, is who we really are as a people, and that we are not African, and that the majority of us, our roots are right here in America and nowhere else. Raw and uncut. You feel me? So let me explain again. What does this have to do with Bill Cosby? Bill Cosby was an elitist. He perpetuated, and he was the poster boy for what the white man wanted us to be as and live next door to. Well, let me give you another example. See the image that they wanted to destroy. And see, Bill Cosby, I believe he justified in his own mind the image that he did to destroy the Good Times image, the happy, who remember the show What's Happening? Who remember the show Good Times? You know, those shows they wanted to destroy because in Bill Cosby's mind, it showed a poor black community that was going nowhere. Like I said, Bill hate poor black people because he predicates his position. He predicates his identity, his dignity, his integrity on white education and money. Bill Cosby predicates his position of dignity, intelligence, and education on the white man's education and money. That's a house nigga. Well, let me show you what Bill Cosby was running from. He was running from this.
Chapter 6.
Why don't you go on without me? Studying for suckers anyway.
Hey, where do you think you're going?
Hey, man, Mike's studying, and I don't want to bother him.
Yeah, well, you get back in there and finish, man.
Well, see, in this house, people study when they're supposed to.
Good thing I'm not a member of this house.
Well, you are this weekend.
What's that supposed to mean?
Well, you heard of the extended family? Well, this weekend you part of one, which gives me the right to extend this belt to your behind if I feel like...
And that's what Bill was running from. Bill didn't like that image. He didn't like that image of a so-called black man that will display that I'm going to whoop your ass if you don't do what I say. That's not what Bill liked. Bill didn't like that. Bill liked that white perspective. And I think I see my sister. Do I see you in the conference room, sis?
Yes, I'm here.
You made it.
I'm here.
You made it out here.
I made it. Yes, I made it.
Well, I'm glad you're here. Now, you see me sitting there talking about the image that they wanted us to have. They wanted us to have this image of what white people was comfortable with, of what they wanted us to be as a people. And that's what Bill Cosby exemplified. You feel me?
Right.
Let me prove a point. See, now, Bill Cosby has a history of being a pacifist and a conformist and a lapdog for white folks. I'm going to prove this point. I got a 1968 excerpt of Bill Cosby talking about kids and parents and talking about education. So let me play this right quick, and we can feed on this right quick, and I shall unmute you after this audio cast. So let me play this right quick, and we shall return.
Now, this country has got a psychological history. There was a master race, there was a slave race. And though there isn't any political slavery anymore, those same old attitudes have hung around. I mean, the burning part of Burn, Baby Burn is right here in this classroom. We want to thank Mrs. Lovely Billups and the whole gang here at fourth grade for the brilliant and intelligent artwork that they've done here to make this whole broadcast sing. I want you guys to keep pretending that I'm not here. You're doing a great job, and just keep on drawing and reading and writing, doing what you have to do, because I'm going to talk about some other kids. Not you, Mary, John, and Bob. These are kids from other schools. Did you know in some states it used to be against the law to teach blacks to read or write? Nowadays we're getting these integrated schoolrooms, and most people think that if we get enough teaching and enough jobs, everything is going to take care of itself. But there's a scar of history running right through kids as young as these. It tears you up if you know how to look at drawings kids make, because kids shouldn't know much about history and anything about discrimination. I mean, nobody hates little black kids, but why do some of them cause so much trouble? Why do some of them cause so much trouble? And if you ask black and white children to draw themselves, or trees, or houses, some strange things happen. We asked some ordinary white kids from ordinary families to make some drawings for us. Like, well, let's call him John. John's white, and we asked him to draw himself. This is John. This is his house, and this is his tree. Then we asked a black kid, let's call him Ralph, to do the same thing. This is Ralph's drawing of himself. This is his tree. Now, why should two kids of the same age draw so differently? Enter the expert. This is Dr. Emmanuel Hammer, psychiatrist specializing in children's therapy.
Well, let me illustrate it for you. Let's take these drawings.
No matter what a child draws, he's really picturing himself. Ask a secure child to draw a tree, and he's likely to draw a bountiful, spreading tree. A black child drew this tree. Cut off in its growth, stark, bare, ungratified. It works the same way with drawings of people. Normal children, average drawings. The mood is happy, the child feels capable, the drawings are complete, and the arms are developed to emphasize strength. These children were old enough to draw complete figures. The significant fact is what they left out. Arms, hands. A child may sense that a situation in life is so powerless that he himself is equivalent to an armless man. My own study reveals that armless people appear 3 times more frequently in the drawings by black children than those by white. The faceless beings suggest that these youngsters not only feel themselves to be less than they might be, they don't even feel themselves to be. The black child who is forced to live in a hostile world may disappear in self-defense. He drifts through life feeling like a shadow. He stops caring, and he stops trying.
Did you hear it? This was something that Bill Cosby did in 1968. And listen again. Let me let you the first part of it. Bill shows his pacifism. He shows his conformity, being a tool in the device by white folks to not only help make us feel bad, look bad inwardly, but to perpetuate a white man's idea of who we are based on children's drawings. Listen, let me just play this first part one more time.
Now, this country has got a psychological history. There was a master race, there was a slave race.
Did you hear that? There was a master race and there was a slave race. He starts his sentence off with pacifism. He starts it off talking. I don't know what he think he's doing, but he starts it off. You can see he's a device and a tool. His agenda is assimilation and cultural genocide. Break you down mentally, break you down psychologically, and you know what? You're broken down. Now I can reprogram you to what I want you to be, to what you should be. And this was done in this right here. This so-called whatever he's doing on this, this clip that I got was done in 1968. Okay, and he's in a classroom setting. But if you listen to it, and then he turns around, he brings in this white doctor that comes to a conclusion that black kids are their drawings show that they let me just read it and let him say this. Let this white devil say this again.
The significant fact is what they left out. Arms, hands. A child may sense that a situation in life is so powerless that he himself is equivalent to an armless man. My own study reveals that armless people appear 3 times more frequently in the drawings by black children than those by white. The faceless beings suggest that these youngsters not only feel themselves to be less than they might be, they don't even feel themselves to be. The black child who is forced to live in a hostile world may disappear in self-defense. He drifts through life feeling like a shadow. He stops caring, and he stops trying.
He stops caring, he stops trying. He becomes a shadow. This is what these white devils was teaching and using Bill Cosby to perpetuate on television to our children and to our people. Like I say, programming people. These motherfuckers constantly trying to tell us who we are. We're not them and they are not us. We are not them and they are not us. You feel me? We don't train our children and raise our kids the way they do. We don't educate our kids the way they do. We don't run our households the way they do. The thing about it, though, by looking at Bill Cosby and listening to this so-called white devil doctor in the 1968, they are trying to tell us who we are. They're trying to tell us what's wrong with us. And he starts off by talking about why black kids are bad. This is what Bill Cosby perpetuates. Let me see if I can find that part of it again. Check this out.
Then we asked the black kid, let's call them Ralph's little black kids, but why do some of them cause so much trouble? You know how to look at drawings kids make, because kids shouldn't know much about history and anything about discrimination. I mean, nobody hates little black kids, but why do some of them cause so much trouble? Why do some of them cause so much trouble?
Did you get it? Why do some... This was in 1968, Bill Cosby put this on. Why do so many of them cause so much trouble? And he's talking about black kids as if there's a disconnection between him and his black people, or so-called black people. Like I said, Bill Cosby never had a connection to the so-called black community. Mind you, people, I use the term so-called because we're not black. I don't know anybody black. And black is not what you think it is. Black is the absence of color. Black is actually white. So basically, by calling yourself black, you're calling yourself white. Raw and uncut. I'm pretty sure somebody out there disagree with me, but go look up the etymology of the word black and call me back after that. Raw and uncut. So let me unmute my sis. Sis, did you hear that? Did you hear what I just played? Are you there?
You hear me?
Yeah. Did you hear what I just played?
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on that?
I couldn't fully hear because I had a little distraction with my fiance, so I didn't hear all of it.
Hey,
so.
if he has any questions, oh, we got some wind going on in the backdrop there. If he has any questions, I invite it.
Oh, he's in the sports right now. He was questioning, so I was trying to walk outside.
Okay.
But, yeah, I heard parts of it when they gave the little drawing.
Yeah, no, you see how
analogy.
You see how he gonna draw out a whole conclusion on the mind of a child based on a drawing. Did you hear that?
Right.
And did you hear how Bill Cosby said that there was a master race and there was a slave race? Did you hear him say that?
I heard that.
Now, you know that's not true, right? You know that's not true, right? There was never a slave race and there was never a master race. There's no such thing as a master race. There's the human race. But Bill Cosby.
Well, I don't understand the concept of what he's talking about when he said that.
Well, you don't have to know. You can just read into what he just said. He said, let me just replay that right quick and let you hear it again. Here you go.
Okay.
Now, this country has got a psychological history. There was a master race, there was a slave race. And though there isn't any political slavery anymore, those same old attitudes have hung around.
All right, now let's stop it right there. Number one, there is no such thing as a master race. There is no such thing as a master race. And there was never a slave race. For you to say there's a slave race, that's saying people are born into slavery. Our ancestors... No, our ancestors were not born into slavery. Slavery...
No, they're children. As they had children, they were born into it.
But see, that was still a condition of white people. That doesn't make them a slave. That doesn't make them a master race. That makes them devils. Do you feel me?
Right.
That doesn't make them a master race. He said there was a master race and there was a slave race. That's bullshit. And then for him to bring in this white devil and make a judgment about black children. Let's play that again right quick and let you hear that again. Check this out.
A black child drew this tree, cut off in its growth, stark, bare, ungratified. It works the same way with drawings of people. Normal children, average drawings. The mood is happy, the child feels capable, the drawings are complete, and the arms are developed to emphasize strength. These children were old enough to draw complete figures. The significant fact is what they left out. Arms, hands. A child may sense that a situation in life is so powerless that he himself is equivalent to an armless man. My own study reveals that armless people appear 3 times more frequently in the drawings by black children than those by white. The faceless beings suggest that these youngsters not only feel themselves to be less than they might be, they don't even feel themselves to be. They disappear in self-defense. He drifts through life feeling like a shadow. He stops caring, and he stops trying.
See, that's a lie. Do you see that? That's a lie. He said he's a shadow. Come on, really? I mean, really? This is what you...
So this is Bill Cosby. Okay, I need a clear understanding. So this is Bill Cosby telling... There's him having some white person describe the writings of 2 different...
This is Bill...
race of children.
This is Bill Cosby explaining in his own mind to the populace of why black kids are bad. Didn't you hear him? We say, why are black kids so bad? I can replay that too. He says, why black children are so bad. So this is the doctor explaining why black children are so bad. Because and this
was during what time?
And this was in 1968. So this doctor is taking white kids' drawings and black kids' drawings and comparing them and drawing a conclusion. That's fucking crazy. He's comparing black. Well, let me look. Look what he says about the white kids' drawings.
You shouldn't know much about history and anything about discrimination. I mean, nobody hates little black kids, but why do some of them cause so much trouble? Why do some of them cause so much trouble? And if you ask black and white children to draw themselves, or trees, or houses, some strange things happen. We asked some ordinary white kids from ordinary families to make some drawings for us. Like, well, let's call him John. John's white, and we asked him to draw himself. This is John. This is his house, and this is his tree. Then we asked a black kid, let's call him Ralph, to do the same thing. This is Ralph's drawing of himself. This is his tree. Now, why should 2 kids of the same age draw so differently?
All right, there you go right there. He going to take a drawing from a white kid. You see him said a white kid who comes from an average home. But what kind of home does a black kid come from? Not only that, how you going to take... and if you look at the ages of these kids, all right, in the video, the kids look like they can't be no older between maybe 7 and 8 years old. You're going to take a 7 and 8-year-old drawing and assess their mentality, personality, and mindset based off a fucking drawing. That's... Again, Bill Cosby was a conformist and a pacifist and a lapdog for white people. Raw and uncut. There you go. That's my assessment. Let me hear your assessment.
As far as the overall, what I feel about Bill Cosby or the writing of the children?
See, I'm going to tell you something about me so that you understand my mindset while you giving your explanation or your assessment of the situation. I look at people as a whole. A whole, when I say a whole, I mean WHOLE. A whole. We're a whole, but we're cut up in pieces. And we're cut up in pieces because of the system that we live in that has indoctrinated or perpetuated our mindset with all types of things that we've accepted. So I'm saying, looking at the presentation of what Bill Cosby is saying and doing in this presentation, they're assessing what they call a bad kid or why that kid is bad. Comparing 2 fucking children, a white kid and a black kid's drawing. That is fucking ridiculous. That is ridiculous. That is ridiculous. You can't say a kid is bad because, and we can tell that this child is bad because look at his drawing. Look at drawing. It's a man with no arms. Ooh, look, he has one leg. Ooh, that kid is cut off from society. That child has mental issues now because his drawing is not even complete. That's fucking crazy. And I don't understand why Bill Cosby couldn't say that, other than the fact that, you know what? When you a lapdog for white people and the entertainment industry, you're willing to say anything and do anything. Do you feel
me? Yeah, right.
So let me complete my assessment of Bill Cosby because, and by playing another audio cast, and I'm going to play this and we'll come back after this and we can talk about this audio cast right here with Bill Cosby. You tell me what you think about this.
Bill Cosby was interviewed by Stuart Thomas in 1968 before the presidential election. Cosby's comments on the election and presidential politics still hold true today.
12 years, all I've read about are white people, And now we're going to have this course, and this course is 20 weeks long. And he said, all you can give us is 1 or 2 books by black authors because you don't think there are any other reputable black authors out there. What is that to tell me? It's the same thing all the other kids are going through in the schools, because all they're being told is that, well, there's no one else out there that's really writing anything that's literature. They're writing a whole lot of garbage.
Sure.
And like I suggested to him, Eldridge Cleaver, Soul on Ice. Well, he says that's not literature. He says just a whole lot of writing.
What about Man-Child and the Promised Land? There are an awful lot of white people who would really like to know. Maybe not so, so much in the sense that they demand black history themselves, because they can't really be interested in it. I don't look for a white person to be so interested in something that has to do with black people, because he's not educated that way. He's not brought up that way. He lives in his own community. He goes to his own school. He dates his own women, except when he wants to slip out and find something interesting. The same way the black man slips out to find something interesting. But then there's a heavy-handed all-white treatment that just isn't fair. It just isn't fair. It just isn't fair.
There you go, right there. Another example of Bill Cosby's conformist and pacifism. And why I say that is, look, the young man mentioned that somebody he was talking to said this interview, I believe, was in 69. I believe this was in 69 or 68, this interview here. And he mentioned about, why there's not a whole lot of black authors out there. Well, the young man mentioned Eldridge Cleaver, the book he wrote called Soul on Ice. Very good book. Very good book. But look what Bill Cosby didn't even comment on that. Eldridge Cleaver was a Black Panther Party member at the time. Okay? Actually, he wrote Soul on Ice while he was in prison. To be corrected on that. He was in prison when he wrote Soul on Ice. But in that book, Soul on Ice, I can see why Bill Cosby didn't want to mess with that. That book is raw and uncut. If you go check out Soul on Ice by Eldridge Cleaver, ex-Black Panther member, you'll see why Bill Cosby didn't want to touch on it or talk about that. And in the entire interview, he doesn't talk about the book, or he mentions somebody else. Well, man, who did that? Who was that Bill Cosby mentioned? Let me play this again.
Promised land.
And like I suggested to him, Eldridge Cleaver, Soul on Ice. Well, he says that's not literature. He says just a whole lot of writing.
What about Man-Child and the Promised Land?
Man-Child and the Promised Land. That's what he mentions. A book by a conformist. I looked up the information of the guy who wrote that book. Matter of fact, let me see if I got this sitting there on my monologue right here. I might not even have it. I might just comment on that on my fourth session of this podcast session. I might comment on that more. But let me say this. Anybody go check out Man-Child and the Promised Land, which is basically about a man talking about his life story of being in poverty and coming up out of poverty, but not talking about the specifics of what held him back. Not talking about how the system, Eldridge Cleaver talks about how the system holds you back. Eldridge Cleaver talks about racism and discrimination. That's why he don't want to talk about Soul on Ice. That's why he didn't even comment on Soul on Ice. He just tried to change the subject matter. Let me play that again.
That's not literature. And like I suggested to Eldridge Cleaver, Soul on Ice. Well, he says that's not literature. He says just a whole lot of writing.
What about Man-Child in the Promised Land? There are an awful lot of white people who would really like to know. Maybe not so, so much in the sense that they demand black history themselves, because they can't really be interested in it. I don't look for a white person to be so interested in something that has to do with black people, because he's not educated that way. He's not brought.
And see, now he makes a good point. Let's comment on what he did say that was right. He said that they're not interested in that. That's not educated with that. That's true. But why is he looking to get some type of okay from white people? Why is he looking to get an approval from white people on anything? Well, why do you might say, okay, no, that's not, Bill wasn't doing that. Well, let me prove to you. Yes, he is. Check out this, the last part of what he said in his statement. Check this out. This is why I say he's looking for approval.
He handed all white treatment. It just isn't fair.
Look again. Let me play that again.
I'll find something interesting, but then there's a heavy-handed all white treatment. It just isn't fair. It just isn't fair.
An all-white treatment that isn't fair. That all-white treatment. That's just an all-white treatment that isn't fair. Well, if they're not educated about our culture, if they're not educated with the same culture and values that we got, why do we care that they got an all-white treatment that's made basically just for all white boys, an all-white circle? That's their thing. You feel me? Why do he care about that?
It just isn't fair. It just isn't fair. It just isn't fair.
So again, Bill Cosby lets out tad bits of information showing who he really is. That's what he does. So let me go. I got a book I want to read right here. A book I've been reading from since I've been touching on this topic, this subject matter of Bill Cosby. This book that I got right here that I want to read from is titled, and I've been reading from this book, titled Aristocrats of Color, South and North, the Black Elite, from 1880 to 1920. Again, this book is titled Aristocrats of Color, South and North, the Black Elite, from 1880 to 1920 by Willard B. Gatewood Jr. The book is by Willard B. Gatewood Jr. Okay, so let me go into this book. I'm reading from page 9, and that's because I've already been through page 1, and because that's in my other 2 podcast sessions, and we are on right now. We are on part 3 of this podcast session. So let me mute you, sis, because you got wind and stuff going on in the background that interferes with my show. Let me mute you for a minute, and I'll bring you back up when I'm done reading from this book. Okay, so my point of reading from this book is to point out the attitude, the mentality, and mindset of elite people going all the way back to the 1800s to the 1900s. That mindset has not changed. That mindset has not changed. White people still, elite Negroes, I said white people, yeah. Elite Negroes, they are white in their mind because since they accept all these artificial constructs and promote them that gratify and satisfy white people. So, yeah, they are white-minded. So, my point of reading from this book is to clarify the characteristic and mindset of Bill Cosby. That he had the same mindset of these elite Negroes from the 1800s to the 1900s, from the perspective of trying to get in where he can fit in and to emulate white people. So, let me read page 9 of Aristocrats of Color, and I quote, okay, they manifested a keen interest in history and pioneered in the establishment of organizations dedicated to the study and preservation of Afro-American past. Enamored of royalty and nobility, as were white Americans of the era, many black aristocrats were experts in genealogy and drew up on family trees whose roots and branches included an assortment of African princes, European royalty, Caucasian statements, Madagascan noblemen, and Indian chieftains. A chronicler of black society whose family has been a part of the aristocrats of color for several generations maintained, the aristocracy of which I write is based on birth. It is a club whose passwords are, "Who are your people?" Family heritage was often related to color, which, as Pauli Murray has suggested, was the black yardstick by which everyone measured everybody else, adhering to the one-drop rule. Whites draw on one color line, a black critic argued. But when Negroes take his brush in hand, he draws 100. No other issue generated so much emotion or so confused the question of status in the black community as that of dealing with the relationship of color and class. What makes Blue-Eyed Vayners so aristocratic, declared a character in the Sutton E. Griggs 1901 novel, The Overshadowed, in that we blacks like them, the white folks like them, and they like themselves, leaving nobody to like us, to like the blacks. Leaving nobody to like us blacks. Okay. Most aristocrats were light-skinned, so much so that on occasion some engaged in part-time or convenience passing to avoid structures of Jim Crow laws. Again, let me read that again. Some aristocrats were light-skinned, so much so that on occasion some engaged in part-time or conveniences passing to avoid the structure of Jim Crow laws. That most aristocrats of color were mixed bloods does not mean that mulattoes in general gained entry into the highest stratum of black society. Nameless mulattoes, nobodies, to use Roy Oatley's phrase, lacked education, family name, evidence of good breeding, and another qualification that conferred high status. References to complexion differences rarely came from the upper class, but rather from certain well-known mulatto baiters outside it. Ignoring class other than color, revealing their own color consciousness, they delighted in describing black aristocrats as would-be whites or as snobbish blue veiners, while upper-class blacks, whose physical appearance often made their white inheritance obvious, recognized and expressed pride in prominent white ancestors. They scarcely less unstinting in their praise of African and Indian forebears. Among the aristocrats of color who openly defined and miscegenated family tree was their fair-skinned Daniel Moray, long a fixture in Washington's social elite. Rejecting the view that mulattoes were weak hybrids, he insisted that they possessed exceptional intellectual powers and virility. The mulatto, Moray argued, was a composite man possessing in full measure the best qualities both of the African and the Anglo-Saxon. For Moray and other light-skinned complected aristocrats, their function was to serve as a natural bridge between the black and white worlds. As racial and cultural brokers who spoke to blacks and for blacks to whites. There you go. That's what I wanted to point out. Let me read that one more time as I stumble over my reading a little bit. I'm not a perfect reader, but let me read that again. I want that last part right there. Let me read that again. While upper-class blacks, whose physical appearance often made their white inheritance obvious, recognized and expressed pride in prominent white ancestors, they were scarcely less unstinging in their praise of African and Indian forebears. Meaning they didn't like to talk about their Indian ancestry or their so-called African ancestry. Among the aristocrats of color who openly defended the miscegenated family tree was their fair-skinned Daniel Moray, long a fixture in the Washington social elite. Rejecting the view that mulattoes were weak hybrids, he insisted that they possessed exceptional intellectual powers and virility. The mulatto, Moray argued, was a composite man possessing in full measure the best qualities of both the African and the Anglo-Saxon. For Moray and other light-skinned complected aristocrats, their function was to serve as a natural bridge between the black and the white worlds, as racial and cultural brokers who spoke to blacks and for blacks to whites. Of more practical consequences than its genealogical concerns was the extraordinary emphasis that the upper class placed on education, here we go, and culture, which they left out. The informal education of upper class children began in the home, where books, music, and art were an important part of the everyday life, and as the close attention to the rules of etiquette. If possible, their parents also provided exposure to art galleries, concerts, and the theater. Again, acting like white people. Formal schooling in the liberal arts and in law, medicine, and the professions was common, and the sons and daughters of caterers, barbers, civil servants, and others in elite occupations. Again, elite occupations. Why these are called elite occupations? Because it was hard for a so-called black man and woman to get a good job. Listen to these occupations that was going on. Now, remember, this book is staged between the timeline of 1880 and 1880 and, let me go back over here again. Okay, aristocrats of color. 1880 and 1920, okay? And so the so-called middle upper class jobs for so-called black elites back then was caterers, barbers, civil servants, and we know what a civil servant is, a politician, and others in elite occupations. It strengthened their claim to upper class status. Upper class children and often prepared for college at private academies in New England or at several well-known public schools such as Dunbar in Washington. They then attended Howard, Fisk, Wilberforce, and other elite black institutions or white universities in the North. Blacks graduated of Harvard University possessed their own informal alumni group that constituted an elite within the elite. Mary Church Terrell, whose husband was an honor graduate of Harvard, was certain that the next best thing to being married to the President of the United States was being the wife of a Harvard man. My goodness. There we go. My point. House nigga. And I want you to know Bill Cosby was a part of an alumni, and I'm going to get into that my next podcast session. Since you got any comments you want to make, as well as I read about black aristocrats and house nigga Bill Cosby, who was also an elite aristocrat. Go ahead, girl. You got something to say? I know you're sitting there listening to this.
Yeah. I'm seeing the bigger picture now, because at first I kind of disagree with you, but then as you read and I begin to listen to some of the information, now I see the perspective, the point that you're making, and it has a lot of facts. Now I see a lot of facts into what you're saying about Bill Cosby being a house nigga, how he is really seeing our black people through the mind's eye of a white man.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
And how his opinion and his perception of his own people was structured. And his dialogue was based off of the slave master's mentality about black people.
Exactly. And that would explain.
So I see what you're saying.
Yeah, and that would explain the reason why Bill Cosby has done nothing, absolutely nothing, for anybody in the so-called black community. Now, this man has perpetuated, or at least on his autobiography, that he came from a poor environment, which is a total lie. I got the information on Germantown, Philadelphia, where he came from. Bill Cosby was born in 1937. Okay, he was born in 1937 in Germantown, Philadelphia. Now, why do I say he claimed he was poor? Well, look, I got this biography right here. Check it out. I'm gonna read this biography on Bill Cosby. William Henry Cosby Jr., one of America's most influential and successful entertainers, was born in Germantown, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, on July 12, 1937, to William Henry, a U.S. Navy cook, and Anna Pearl Cosby, a maid. the family struggled financially and moved into Philadelphia's crime-ridden Richard Allen housing project, which provided memorable material for Cosby later in his comedic career. Total fucking lie. Total fucking lie. Check this out. I can read it to you right now. I got the history on Germantown, Philadelphia. I got the information and history on Richard Allen Projects. The Richard Allen Projects was founded, and the projects were built in 1940. The projects were built in 1940, and the project was built in Germantown, Pennsylvania, for white folks. Basically, the projects originally was built for poor white people after the war, after World War II. Okay, and so no, exactly. Wow, for real. Now, let me prove my point instead of just talking about this. Let me break out with some more information right yonder to establish my point. Let me see how. Okay, here we are. Here, check it out. This article I got right here. I got an article right here titled. No, not this article. How far blacks in Philadelphia are left behind? Okay, let me go down here some more. I got so much information on my monologue right here, that I got put together. I'm trying to sift through it, and I should have had a little bit more organized before I started my show. But I think I'm gonna play. Here we go, right here. Alrighty, bear with me, people, as I pull up my information here for this show here. Bill Cosby. Also, I got an article right here called Abstract Bill Cosby, Deconstructing Good Times and the Cosby Show in Search of My Authentic Black Experience. So Bill Cosby contributed. He didn't help black folks. He made things worse, in my opinion. Okay, let me read this right here. Now, I got this information. This is an article. Anybody can go find this article. This article is called. It's coming up. My computer is moving a little slow. Come on up. Okay, here we go right here. It's by Rowan Free Press. The article is called My Hometown, Germantown, Philadelphia, Died in the 1960s. That's what the title of this article. Okay, and it says, I'm just going to read an excerpt from it. Okay. Where I'm going to start at. Okay. Maybe I got to blow it up a little bit because my eyes are bad here. I got my glasses on. I want to make sure I read this. Okay. As a teenager in the mid-1960s, I heard the death rattle of my hometown, Germantown, a.k.a. G-Town, a real historic neighborhood in Philadelphia. Germantown in the 1950s and the 1960s was a mixed white and black neighborhood made up of educated middle upper class working people. Did you hear that? Again. Now, look what the article says. It says in the 1950s to the 1960s was a mixed white. Now, why would they say white first? I want you to know why it would say white first. If you go to do research on Germantown in the 1950s, you're going to find predominantly all white. If you go to the 1940s and the 1930s, all white. No black folks in Germantown in the 1940s and 1930s. If you get to the 1950s, you might find a black person driving through the town, maybe because they're a servant, or maybe they might be a maid or somebody like that, a repairman or something like that. But you didn't have no black folks living in Germantown in the 1950s. So when they say Bill Cosby lived in Germantown, and then you see what it says, was a mixed white and black neighborhood made up of educated middle upper class income working people. That's what it says. It was an outstanding place to grow up. Now, the person who's writing this article is a white man. I want you to know that. So this white person grew up in Germantown. That's why he titles his article. That's why he titles his article, My Hometown, Germantown, Philadelphia, Died in the 1960s. Because this was a white man who grew up in Germantown, and he saw white flight happen in Germantown. Let me continue reading, and I quote, "It was an outstanding place to grow up, at least until the early 60s, when two turning points in Germantown occurred. The first was planning high-rise public housing development in Germantown, bringing large pockets of poverty, gangs, drugs, and crime in the neighborhood." Now, look, you see what he said? He said in the 1960s. Now, the Richardtown Allen Projects was built in the 1940s, and Bill Cosby was born in Germantown in the 1930s. What was he raised in? What was he raised in? He was raised in an upper all-white community. Do you feel me?
Neighborhood.
Yes.
Right.
This motherfucker was an elitist. And come on, really? Come on. I was born in the 1960s. And in L.A., where I grew up at, it was all niggas and Mexicans. Do you feel me?
Right.
Come on, man. Put the picture
Right.
together. They got to be real about who this motherfucker is. You feel me?
Right. And that's good information, because once you get a person where they born, where they raised, their environment, when you start digging into their history or who they are, their past, then you have a clear understanding of that person's mind.
Exactly. That's why he can be a mouthpiece and explain the mindset of white people by talking about, look, right here, when he says this. When he says this shit here.
Because all they being told is there's no one else out there that's really right. Anything that's literature. Well, he says that's not
white people.
Well, man, here we go.
Really
says just a whole lot of writing.
What about man-child in the promised land? There are an awful lot of white people who would really like to know. Maybe not so.
How did he know what white people want? There's an awful lot of white people that like to know. How do you know How do you know if there's a lot of white people like to know? How do you know this? Because you live amongst a motherfucker. You've been living around them all your motherfucking life since you was a child. Now, somebody might say, well, Bill can't help where he was raised. Bill can't help he was raised in an elite family. That ain't his fault. Well, you know what? You're right. It's not his fault. Then why he perpetrated front like he was born in a poor community? Why he perpetrated front to try to make it seem like he can relate to black people when he can't? The only people he can relate to is white folks. Why he out there trying to tell us about ourselves and talk about poor black children, why they bad? This motherfucker got a white man's mindset. He can't tell me nothing about me. He can't tell me nothing about me. He can tell me how to brown nose. He can tell me how to get the white man's boo-boo on my face. That's what he can tell me how to do. Man, come on. We're all uncut about it. You feel me? I got this. I'm going to play this last clip of Bill Cosby. And before we get off the air, let me play this last clip, and we should take it from here right after this.
But the importance of black history, I mean, you just can't measure it, man. Because then, and I think this is why people don't want to serve it, and they don't want to put it out. Because then most people will really realize that we have done something, as a group. When they say we, I include all of us, man. Because, the cat's going to vote for Wallace. He's talking about keeping niggas in their places, or keeping the nigga in his place. He's not talking about everybody except Bill Cosby. No, he's jealous because Bill Cosby's got some bread, too. Yeah. He's jealous because Harry Belafonte's got 2 Cadillacs or whatever. And he just assumed that this whole country be all white, you see. I just feel that if we can get the history put in, that isn't the only thing, but that is a very important thing, man. And it's an example of the racism and bigotry that exists in this country, right. Because look at how harmless it is, you see, to say that a certain person did something and they did this and so forth and so on, and make it a part of an exam, but they refuse to do it. Last year, I excused the teachers and the school system for it because, you have to be prepared. Yeah. And I said, okay, if you don't have it this year, all right, that's because you're not prepared, but you have the summer. Go to your library. Go to the reserve book room. Read. Find out. Black heroes in World War II. Black heroes, World War I. So forth and so on. Men who have invented things. The real black man who was with Lewis and Clark. Right. The cat who went to the North Pole. How much he did. So forth and so on. Let's get all this together, man. Yeah.
Now, I want you to know, all that sounds good. And he was saying this in the 60s. So it was really sounding good in the 60s, especially during the 60s and the early 70s when you had the Black Power movement moving forward. And so I guess he was trying to put his 2 cents in because Bill Cosby does not have a resume or a history of having any political interest, at least vocally, publicly. He's tried to separate his political perspective from his career and from his public persona, because that can be very controversial, and white folks don't like that. So if you notice, Bill Cosby kind of rode that strata where he would not be considered a political public figure. He wanted to be that entertainment public figure, because you can use that to manipulate the public, and he did that very well. But my problem with this interview right here, again, as I said, it exemplifies his pacifism. He won't talk about the white man being jealous of his money. White man ain't jealous of any black man's money. And then again, he's perpetuating black. Getting that, educate yourself with black heroes, black this. What the hell is black? Black is not an ethnicity. Black is not a race. It's not an identity. It's an artificial construct. You feel me? And I would love for somebody to come on my show one day, and I'm waiting to hear him say, well, you call your show The Black Village. I got something for your ass. because my show is only an eye draw to draw in people. My show is once I get you in and you come on my show, then I can open my mouth and give you the raw and uncut and drop you the raw and uncut, the blue pill or red pill. Which one you want? Well, you came in, huh? You saw Black Village and got your ass here. I got you. Now let's talk. Yeah. I call it the Black Village. Yeah. You called in. Now I got you. What you want to know? I use it as a means to draw my people in, so I can give you the raw and uncut. You feel me? I also tell people this: if you take all the colors of the rainbow, if you take all the colors of a crayon, of a box of crayons, or if you take all the color that you can, all the different colors in paint and put it together, what color does it turn?
Black.
Thank you. So when you put all the colors together, it turns dark. I like to use the term dark because I want you to know at one time we did not use the term black. Go look it up. Look up the etymology of the word black and how it evolved over the history, how it evolved in this country. At one time, we didn't say black. We say dark. The term black didn't come into existence until these motherfuckers want to label us black Americans, black people. But if you go to the early 1900s, if you go to the 1800s, you know what they was calling us? They was calling us nigger, negro, colored. Oh, go ahead, colored boy. Come here, colored boy. Called you colored. That's a colored woman. Then when we got to the 1930s, the 1940s, the 1950s, we became black. Black people, black Americans, black folks. Then when we got to the 1960s and the 1970s, we became Afro-American. Afro-American. Now we're in the 1980s to the 1990s to the year 2000. Now niggas running around calling themselves African American. It's bullshit. We got to wake up. We are American Indians. We're all uncut. That's it. That's all. Nigga, if your grandmama's from here and your grandpa's from here and your great-grandma's from here and your great-grandpa's from here and your great-grandma's from here and your great-great-grandma's from here and your great-great-grandpa's, nigga, you a fucking Indian. That's it.
Right. It's the white man anyway. It's the elite that's black, because black has no color.
Thank you.
Okay, white people is not even white. They have no color.
They black. White people black.
Right. No color.
Absolutely.
They the ones black. They the ones come from the monkeys. They switching. They reflecting themselves onto us and programming us with that information. They reflecting themselves.
Raw and uncut.
So they the black ones. They don't have no color, and they come from monkeys. When you do their ancestral research, you'll find out that they are the Neanderthals. They are Caucasian. They came from the Caucasus Mountains.
Yep. Raw and
caveman,
uncut.
monkey.
Raw and uncut. Raw and uncut, girl. Raw and uncut. You dropped the raw and uncut on everybody because that's the truth. White people know that. Why you think they want us all to come from Africa? They want to try to say we came out of them motherfuckers. No, I didn't come out of you, reptilian. No, I did not. You came from somewhere. I don't know where you came from, because at one time there was nothing but colored people on this planet. You came from somewhere, off a ship somewhere. So let's get back down to the
exactly. And
go ahead, sis. Go ahead.
Okay, and that's where I see where you're talking about where Bill Cosby his mind has been constructed into the Caucasian way of thinking and feeling about his own people. He really have lost himself by being programmed by the elite, because he was born into the system of the white man. He was born into their community. So therefore his life has unfolded, and went on that path of the European nature. So he see his people as like the Europeans see the what they call colored or Negro or Afro American.
Exactly. That's what you just said. That's the truth. When Bill looked at so-called black people, he saw savages. And my next podcast, the week after next, when I do my next one, I'm going to show that. I got that information. When he gave the pound cake speech, when Bill Cosby gave the pound cake speech, I got an updated interview before he went to jail. Before Bill Cosby went to jail, before all them going to court charges and stuff, I got an interview that he gave, and he had the same mindset, blaming black kids, blaming parents for the lack of education, constantly just blaming black people for everything. Let me play this right quick. Check this out.
Now, this country has got a psychological history. There was a master.
Wrong one. That wasn't it. Let me see. Why is it not playing? It's not playing. Let me see. Here.
Now, this country.
Okay, that's not it. Did I upload it? I didn't upload it. I didn't upload it. No problem. I'll play it next week. Because what I'm gonna do next week, I'm gonna show that not only did Bill Cosby hate black people, okay, I'm going to also show that he was a part of a fraternity. Bill Cosby was a Mason. Let's just say it raw and cut like that. Bill was a Mason. Now I said, well, if he was a Mason, he shouldn't have went to jail. I thought they supposed to get you. No, Bill took things too far. Bill got under control. I mean, he got out of control. Bill was out of control. Bill was really raping those women. You got people running around here who don't want to accept the fact. I got information. I'm going to prove that Bill was doing what they said he was doing. Did he do all those women? I'm not going to say he did all those women. I don't know how many women he did. He might have did all those women, but I got information proving that Bill was doing what he was doing. He was drugging women. I got an audio cast of his stand-up comedy where he talked about drugging women back in the 1960s. He made a stand-up comedy joke on it. I got information of the doctor. I got some information of the doctor where he was getting the drugs from and where he admitted and wrote in a sealed document where he admitted he was getting drugs from this doctor. The doctor ended up in jail too.
The thing is, I don't think Bill Cosby, like you said, I don't think he drugged and raped all them women. I believe it was a setup, because if you do some of his history, where I think it was during the 70s or the 80s, where he tried to buy the newscaster of ABC or NBC or something like that. You start getting into buying out the white man's he was, like you said, he was going too far, and he was going up the scale. So he was starting to buy out the white man. People that white man then produced.
Let me comment on that. Let me comment on that, sis. Let me comment on that. True enough, True enough. Back in the 80s, Bill Cosby tried to buy, I believe it was ABC or NBC. He tried to buy a television network.
Right.
White folks would not let him buy that network. Matter of fact, the executives on the network, it came out that they said they would sell the network to Japanese people before they sell it to Bill Cosby. So, but my point is that you might say, well, he went too far. I want you to know, when Bill Cosby was trying to buy that network, he was on a network board where they make decisions of what shows are going to be shown. He was already working for a network. He was on a network board during that time. Bill Cosby had connections. He was sitting right there next to rich white folks on a network board. Why would he even think or consider or even know how to buy a network unless he had connections with those white boys whom he was working for? You got to realize Bill was working for the white man. Bill wasn't working for himself. Bill worked for white people. White man signed off Bill's check. Well, how'd you mean sign off his bill? Because Bill Cosby's show that he wrote, Bill Cosby's show that he produced and directed, was still on a white man's network. Yes, so he got paid by white folks.
So he was basically climbing the white man's tree, got to the top of the tree, and now they him and they cutting them down.
Well, of course. But look, even the fact that he was drugging women, he was taught that by some white people. I personally believe he was taught that in college. I'm going to prove that. I'm going to prove that. I'd like to have you on my show the week after next. I'm doing my show every other week instead of every Sunday now. I'm doing my show every other Sunday now because they give me time to study. Actually, that'll give me time to do something with you, too, so we can talk about that after I get off the air. Matter of fact, I'm going to get off the air right now, girl. This show is going on. I done went 30 minutes past my time limit, girl. I'm in trouble. Folks will be like, JC, what are you doing? I thought you did an hour show. You did an hour and a half show. So let me get off. Okay. Let me get off there. You got any last words before we get off the air, and then we can continue our conversation off the air? You got any things you want to say before we go?
Not really. But hey, let's come together as a people and start researching our culture and let go this mindset of these Europeans, because it's killing us. It's killing us and our people.
And I concur that. I agree with that. And I'm on the same note as my sis. We got to you know what? I'm going to put it in the words of a Klan mother. I had a Klan mother. I got a video. And sis, you can go to the Village on Google and check out this video. I got a video. I think I put it also in the Village on Facebook of a Wampanoag. She's from the Indian tribe called the Wampanoag tribe. And it's a Klan mother who gives an advice on what we need to do. We call urban Indians because we live in the city. See, she's a reservational Indian. She lives on a reservation. We're urban Indians. And she said we need to decolonize our minds. The white man has colonized our land. He's came here. He ain't going nowhere. This motherfucker ain't going nowhere. He got fucking weapons, biological weapons and technological weapons, and he got all types of motherfucking mind game weapons. This motherfucker ain't going nowhere. But we don't have to let him colonize our mind. That's up to us. That's up to us to let him colonize our mind. And so we have to decolonize our mind because our minds are being and has been colonized. You feel me? So on that note, I gotta go. And so, as I always say, may the great mother bring us together under the wings of her love and her peace. And I always say I love chicken, so love, peace, and chicken grease. I gotta go. I'm out of here, people. Bye.
No matter where you go, in every country we in there. Most of us did not come on slave ships, we've been here. Indian just means amalgamated more. The U.S. tried to wipe us out in 3 Seminole wars. For each Aboriginal, 7 troops died. 90% of Indians were reclassified as Negroes. We fought European foes. Africa's great, but we don't look under our nose. Or now here's the Old Man River, or the Massey Sequel, knock out the Mississippi. We're the Yamasee people and others here like the Washita, the Chocos in Colombia, Darienes in Panama, the Garifunas and more. We're prisoners of war. Our titles, nationalities, and birthrights ignored. We got a huge missing gap in our past and been divided into race of some type of caste. Everyone else has a language, where's mine? Cause ours is long gone like your grandpa's hairline.
Aboriginal people, Aboriginal people, Aboriginal people.